Hey, everybody, we are back live with another How to Succeed podcast. This is How to Succeed at Email Marketing with Jay Schwedelson. If you don't know him, he is a world-renowned expert, creator of SubjectLine.com, the founder there, and guru events as well. But we're going to specifically be talking about the latest tips and tricks for email marketing and subject lines. The How to Succeed podcast, brought to you by Sandler, the worldwide leader in sales, management, and customer service training. Over 200 locations worldwide. Find more information at Sandler.com. And what else do you need to know? Hit subscribe, share this with somebody that you think needs to hear it, and we'll have some fun. Here we go. How to Succeed at Email Marketing with Jay Schwedelson. All right, Jay, we did it. We made it here. I'm excited to talk to you because I've seen you present several times virtually at Inbound and live last year. And you get to talk again at HubSpot's Inbound conference here in a couple of weeks about the latest tips and trends in email marketing. How did you get into email marketing in the first place?
Yeah, and email is a funny thing because people always say email's dead, email's legacy. And to me, it's always changing. It's always exciting. And I love it. I come from the world of direct mail. About almost 25 years ago, as email was really just starting to emerge. I'm like, this is cool. And I just went deep on email.
Postage is a lot cheaper.
Yeah, exactly. A lot cheaper, a lot faster. And kind of anything you could apply, results, you could see results instantly and then say, oh, I want to do more or less of that. I was like, that's where I wanted to be. And I don't love algorithms. So email was my happy place. And so that's kind of, how I fell into email, and I've kind of gone deep into it. Well, I do other things as well, but certainly email is a great channel for marketers.
Now, when we're talking about email marketing here, and I guess we should start specifically with the subject line too, because I think it kind of sets the whole tone with the attitude. We start with attitude here, and I think a lot of salespeople, when they're sending individual messages, but also just marketers, screw up the subject line right in the bot. They start trying to sell in the subject line. They overdo it. They overcomplicate it. It sounds like spam. We've all been trained by 10,000 emails to just delete stuff that's
Right.
spam. What's the ideal attitude for maybe even approaching email marketing in the first place, but certainly in starting this conversation?
And I think a lot of marketers have email a little bit backwards, because what they do is they spend all this time on what's inside the email, the greatest copy, the greatest offer, the most perfect everything. And then right before they send it out, what do? They're like, oh my God, I need a subject line. And they spend like 30 seconds or less. And they write something really not giving any consideration, where if the email doesn't get opened, who actually cares what's in your email, right? So you really want to spend some time and energy on that subject line, because it is the thing that's going to decide whether or not that email gets opened. And there are literally things that you could do, little things that you could do that cost you no money, that take 5 seconds to try, that can radically change the number of people that are opening up your email. So focusing on that subject line, while it may seem insignificant, it may seem ridiculous, it is a game changer in terms of your overall campaign performance, results, sales, and so on. So that's why I go so deep on subject lines, because it's everything.
Yeah, I think it separates out the humans from the robots really easily, but it's also, like you said, what gets read. Some people have thousands of unread messages in there, and they're just skimming over stuff, and that's all they see. Other people, prioritize stuff, or they put the whole message in the subject line, and it can be different tactics. So let's talk here and maybe narrow our discussion around sales emails. If I was going to reach out to a prospect, what kind of mindset do I need to have in order to connect well over email and start a good conversation, get a response?
Well, the first thing about the subject line and email in general is that there's a lot of misinformation on the planet about what you can and cannot do with email, right? If you go ahead and you Google, best practices for email marketing, you'll see things that saying like avoid spam trigger words. Okay, avoid capitalization in your subject line, avoid exclamation marks or question marks and things like that. And it's really doing a disservice to salespeople and to marketers, because that's information from 10 years ago, right? You don't go to the junk folder or the spam folder because you use a certain word, like the word free, for example, in your subject line. You go to the junk folder or the spam folder because your overall lack of engagement and sending reputation. So there's a liberation that's first off needed for people that are sending out email to know that you can write what you want to write. You can write it the way that you want to write it and with whatever characters that you want to use. And that's not the reason you're going to go to the junk or spam folder. But then you get into, okay, what are things that we can do in that subject line? And one of the things that we see work incredibly well for sales emails is personalization, but not the personalization that everybody always talks about. When we talk about personalization email, a lot of people like to put in the subject line, first name, right? They're like, Mike, comma, check this out. And 3 years ago, that was cool. No one was doing it, right? And then if you go to your inbox now, you see your first name in like 50% of the subject lines because it worked so well. So we all copy each other. And now it's almost like wallpaper. And it actually, in some cases, actually is a negative performer. But the personalization that crushes it, that does so well is, and this is the concept you want to plant in your mind always. The sooner you could tell somebody who they are, the faster they'll engage. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're marketing to people in the construction industry, okay? In the subject line, you say, this is critical for people in the construction industry, for construction professionals only, okay? You're telling somebody this is specifically for people, and like if I was to think about marketing, so I'm in marketing, for marketers only, I'm like, oh my God, what is this? I got to open it up. On the consumer side, if you do it on their interest or what's going on in their life, for DIYers only, for people renovating their home, right? And you already know this information, you know who it is you're marketing to, right? You're marketing to a small business owner, you're marketing to HR professionals, you're marketing, to grandparents, to affluent investors, whoever they are. You take who they are and you tell them immediately the first part of your subject line, and you use that as the personalization. And it will lift your open rate, the percentage of people open up your emails, by over 30% just by telling the person who they are. So when we talk about personalization, that tactic more than any other really drives results.
I love that. And it's one of the things I'm going to talk about at my talk at Inbound is hyper personalization. And you can even create and segment funnels based on personality style now. So we can put all the high D people, we can give them the too long didn't read version of an email, and all the people that need nice, flowery, steady human relations sort of language, we can write a different email for them. And I think a lot of people in email marketing are missing that. They're still trying to blanket personas and send the same subject line to everybody. And that's going to really hurt your engagement.
Yeah. And the thing in that is, I think in marketing in general, in sales, I think the message is starting to get out that segmentation is the right path, right? You don't send the same thing to everybody. But I think the piece that's still missing is, not only do you want to segment based on whatever the different buckets are, but then you want to tell the segments that you recognize who's in that segment. You actually want to state the obvious. Like, this is for HR professionals, even though, of course, that's the segment of people that you're marketing to. Just because you know who they are, they don't know that you know who they are, right? So I think that element is critical. And then the other things in the subject lines that really tends to do well is playing on some of our human elements. What I mean by that is things like fear. Fear does incredibly well in subject lines, like the 4 mistakes you need to avoid. Oh my God, what are they? Literally, by saying mistakes in the subject line, we're all like, oh, it's almost more important than what's working best. It's almost better than saying the 4 things that will make everything work great. You want to avoid the pitfalls. So like words like the 4 mistakes you want to avoid do incredibly well. And then things like suspense. When you use like if you had 3 dots, dot, to the end of your subject lines, right? You'll be shocked for your sales emails how much of a boost that gets. Okay. It could be literally anything. Our biggest discount of the year, dot, right? The keynote is dot. Have you seen dot. Literally, if you write, have you seen dot, you will get more people opening it. And then there'll be people that are listening to this like, that's gimmicky. That feels like spam. That doesn't blah, blah, blah. But here's the reality of it. When they open it up, it's on you to have really good content for it to be really relevant, right? If they don't open it up, then you lose. Right now, you can't you can't pull the wool over their eyes. It can't not be what it's about. It has to be on point. But yeah, getting that email opened, there's a lot of different ways to kind of to beat the system so that way they engage, and that's how you win. That's how you win.
The ellipses is my go-to
Yes.
move, Jay. I'm
Yeah.
sending this recording to our VP of marketing, Carrie, now at Sandler, because that's my go-to. Probably overuse it too much on mine. But now, as we move to the behavior bucket, I have a lot of questions here. We could talk about the behaviors of what to put in there, what not to put in there. But I guess in email marketing, everybody's first question is always, is there a right time? Is it, is it still like 10 o'clock on Tuesday? Should we not email on Mondays and Fridays? You're on top of this, minute to minute, knowing what's working. What do you think of when you think of right thing at the right time?
So I'm a believer, and I know that's going to sound counterintuitive, to send out more, not less. And the reason that matters is, first of all, the most successful marketers, the biggest brands on the planet, happen to also be the most frequent senders. Marketers make the mistake and they think by sending less, that's somehow going to improve things. It's not true. And the reason that matters related to time is that, let's say you are sending out a newsletter, hypothetically, okay? And you send it on Tuesdays at 8 a.m. Great, that's the time that's been working well for you. But you want to send that out a second time. So you send it on Tuesday, 8 a.m., great, it goes out. But you want to send it out on let's 2 days later, okay, to people who didn't open it originally. And when you send out 2 days later, and maybe the subject line says, oops, I think you missed this. What you want to do is cater to how people read email. Not everybody reads their email at 8 a.m. So when you send it out, any email a second time, sales email, you're promoting something, you don't send it out on Tuesday at 8 a.m. and then Thursday at 8 a.m. You send it out Tuesday at 8 a.m. and then Thursday at like 4 p.m., a radically different time, because you want to cater to the populations of people in your database that consume email at different times, because we all do it. I read a lot of my email late at night because during the day, I can't get to it. Other people read it first thing in the morning. So there's not necessarily this is the exact right time. It's more that you want to make sure that you're catering to different populations at different times. And the other thing, when we talk about behavior, one thing with email that drives me crazy is this idea that unsubscribes are bad. Especially for salespeople, what happens, you send out an email and invariably you get an email back that says, I hate you, take me off your list, you're a horrible person, this is illegal, or whatever the ridiculousness they write back. And then what happens? You either take that, or some of your reporting to takes the emails. Oh my goodness, we're sending out too much email. We need to stop. Look, we got this email in. This is really bad. Okay. And the two things that bother me about that is, number one, you're letting the loudest voice in the room dictate your efforts, which is terrible, because that person who wrote that nasty gram back is just having a bad day, right? They could care less who you are. They're not thinking, whatever. But in general, when we talk about behavior, it is so important to understand that unsubscribes are a good thing, not a bad thing. And we need to kind of change this mentality. And the reason I say that is, when somebody unsubscribes from your list, what has happened is you've done something where they finally see your email. So you send out an email, and you did something in the subject line. You capitalized the word, you used 3 ... You used the word mistake, something, and it stood out. And then for the first time in forever, they saw your email and they're like, oh, and they opened it up. They forgot they were on your list. And you know what? They're no longer a fit. They already have the product or service. They don't need you, whatever. And they hit unsubscribe. And when they hit unsubscribe, number one, they're taking a dead person off your list. It's not going to respond. Number two, it's actually engagement. And the myth is people think it hurts your deliverability. It does not. It actually helps your deliverability. So unsubscribes are good. Nasty gram should not dictate your
salespeople. That's just disqualification too, right? That's absolutely. We don't want to follow up, and we don't want to have sales appointments with people who don't want to be on our list.
Right? Exactly, so right. Right. And the worst thing you do as a salesperson is let a nasty gram that you get back, or a series of unsubscribes you get back, make you change your sending behavior, that you're going to start sending less. It's like, what are you doing? That's the opposite of what you should be doing. So we talk about behavior. That's a pet peeve of mine.
Well, that is perfect. I love that. And it leads me right into another one, which I've seen in activation sequences and stuff. I would love to hear what your thoughts are and what you've seen in your research is. I see a lot of salespeople do, especially on LinkedIn, doing the pitch slap. Like, I'd like to connect with you. Boom, here's my 30-second commercial, first message I send to you. But I've also seen email experts say, like, when somebody's new to your marketing list, you want to hit them pretty hard, like 10 messages in the first 10 days with a building sequence of stuff to either get them into a sales qualified lead or get them out of your list, intentionally make them unsubscribe. Where do you land on timing as far as what these messages and how hard we should pitch, or when do we send that "you must be dead" email and just checking on you?
That's a really interesting question. And I think one of the things that we don't do a good enough job of is to look at where they originated from. What I mean by that is if somebody downloaded, let's say, the 7 tips you need to know about accounting or whatever, like a tip sheet, okay? Or somebody downloaded a case study about your company, okay? If they downloaded that tip sheet, they're way top of the funnel. They're barely a lead, okay? And if you start crushing them with your sales emails, they're going to be turned off. If someone downloads a case study, they're way down the funnel. Okay. These people are like, they're checking out your company. They're interested in what you have to say. And yeah, you need to be crushing them with sales stuff. And there's a big gap there. Somebody watches an on-demand video, they register for a webinar, they show up for the webinar. What was the webinar topic? Was it about your company or was it about the industry? Depending on what the thing is that originated that interaction really should dictate how aggressive you can be in terms of attack mode. But certainly there are some things that if somebody interacts with that, yeah, you should be all over them and go after them aggressively. Whereas other things, you have to continue to win them over before you just start telling them that you're the greatest thing since sliced bread.
That makes a lot of sense to me too. And that's another one. You're giving away my whole talk. My talk is titled Creating a Customer Focused Sales Process. And basically what we're talking about is how do we line up our sales process to meet buyers where they are so that we're not jumping ahead in that. We're not throwing out a presentation when they first reach out to us or they downloaded, like you said, a free content asset or showed up on a webinar. And we're not slowing other people down who are ready to buy. If somebody comes in hot, we got to speed up and meet them where they are, right?
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
All right. Now it's time for my favorite bucket. And I feel like you could just go all day on this one, but the techniques. These are the tips, tools, and hacks. This is your title of your inbound talk, the latest tips on email marketing and stuff. I've heard great ones from you around emojis, and I see your posts all the time about, what trends and what's working now. What are some of your favorite either subject line or email tips of all time?
So a few email tips I guess I would throw out. There's number one, for sales emails, 100%, you must use PS at the end of your emails. If you don't add a PS, you're crazy. The way people read emails is they look at the from address, the subject line, the first few words of your email, and then the PS. And that'll get you about an extra 14% click-through rate just by having the PS and put the offer in the PS. The logo in your message, whether it's a creatively designed email or just a letter format email, that's going to get about 20% of all your clicks. So make sure that that's going to your offer destination page and not just your home page, because that's 1 in 5 clicks that are going to go somewhere. So you really want to consider that.
Let me highlight that one real quick, because I don't know if you weren't paying attention there. Everybody puts their logo in their email, like in the top banner ad. And that's where, like you said, almost a quarter of the people click on that rather than anything you wrote in the subject line. So even if you're a salesperson, put the link to an offer or to your Calendly page or whatever to book an appointment with you. But don't just send that to Sandler.com because then people are going to be lost and they have to find out where to go from there. That one's huge. I love that.
Yeah. You got to be intentional about every component of what you're doing. I'll give you another example that people don't think about. When you're setting up your email campaign to have it go out, what do? What do we all do? We set up a campaign to go out at 8 a.m., at 10 a.m., at 2 p.m., always on the hour. Everybody does it. So every piece of sales email and promotional garbage email shows up in the first 10 minutes. Over 80% of all email sent out on the hour. Okay. If you want to get a little boost in your performance, have your campaigns go out at 8:15, okay, at 11:22, at 2:05, a little bit later, not on the hour, and your email is going to show up not when all the other promotional email shows up. And we've done a lot of studies on this. And just by doing that, you'll actually see a lift. So The littlest things can make the hugest difference. Other little things that I like to focus on are also the language you're using on the buttons, whether the buttons in your email or on the destination page that you're taking them to, right? You don't want to use words like register or download or submit. These are horrible words. They're almost borderline rude. You want to, if you're promoting, let's say, some sort of event, you want to say the button, the actual words on the button should say, I want in, or yes, can't wait, right? Or save my spot, uh, anything like that, right? And you want to state the benefit rather than the commitment. And you always want to talk in first person on these buttons. Because when you talk in first person, the person they don't realize it, but subconsciously, they're that much closer to being able to do the thing that they were interested in. So every piece, whether it's the subject line or the buttons or the timing or whatever, it all matters. And that's when people say, well, email doesn't work for me. I'm like, well, that's because you're not looking at a series of the little things that really add up that can make a difference.
I think those are a ton of great tips for the actual email itself. I wanted to roll back and ask you about the whole technique of email marketing in the first place. You said a couple of things as you were introducing yourself that I don't think people caught, but are huge for me. That email programs do not have algorithms sorting the most important ones yet, or still. It's one of the reasons I like podcasting like this one is if you subscribe to the podcast right now, wink, wink, then you get notified every episode that comes out, and there's nobody deciding which podcast to show you or overriding that with an algorithm and stuff. Can you talk a little bit more about just the technique of email marketing and when you email over other stuff, or how email is different than social media or a physical one, or you do a lot of event marketing, but why having somebody on your list is so important?
Yeah, there's this whole discussion about rented space versus owned space, right? Rented space is social media or even search media, where if you go ahead, and I use LinkedIn a lot, right? You post something on LinkedIn, on average, maybe 10% of your network will see any given post that you post, all right? And there's not a lot that you can do about that, right? That's how it's circulated. That's how the algorithm circulates it, which, by the way, is a whole other topic. But that's why you always want to be reposting your content every month or 2 months, stuff you've already posted, because most people didn't see it. So I don't think you're being repetitive. Nobody saw it. Nobody cares. But the problem and the beautiful thing about email is when it's owned real estate, right? Which is why you have to always be asking people for their sign up for my newsletter, give us your address, use lead magnets to get their emails, use pop-up windows on your site to get people to give you their email addresses. Don't care that it's annoying. Okay, because you need to grab that data, because when you want to communicate with them, it is the only channel. It is it. It is the only channel on earth that you can communicate with your entire audience whenever you choose at little to no cost. There's no other avenue that exists on planet Earth. So that's why you have to always be collecting. And things like the pop-up window, and they go to your site and use a lead magnet. People say, well, that's annoying. I don't like when I go to a site and it has that. That is the worst thing that you can do in sales and marketing, is apply what you like. Okay. You're not your customer database. Okay. You're not. You're too close to it. And those pop-up windows are a great example. You go to a site and it says, give us your email address, you get 10% off, give us your email address, you get this piece of content. And maybe you get annoyed by it. But what do? You click the little X and you go onto the site. You don't leave the site and say, I hate you, I'm never working with you. Nobody does that. Right. But on average, about 5% of people actually fill that out. And think about all the people you're collecting. So you always want to be grabbing the data at every moment, asking for the data. Your email list is incredibly important asset.
Awesome. Love that. Last shot at it. Anything else we need to know to be successful with email marketing?
I live by the rule that perfection is the enemy of progress. And what I mean by that is it doesn't matter. Just get it out. When in doubt, send it out. It doesn't need to be great. The copy doesn't need to be perfect. Who cares if that email didn't do well? You could send one out the next day. Just get it out. Okay. Don't overthink it. Don't overthink any of your marketing channels. Just get it out, right? Because that's how you learn and you test and you do. And that's kind of my mantra.
We have this great line you can steal here, Jay, is that the number one reason a prospect won't respond to your sales email is because you didn't send one, right?
Boom. I love that. I love
There
that.
you
Get that
go.
tattooed. I'm all in. I agree.
Get that out there. All right. Once again, we've been talking with Jay Schwedelson. He is an email and subject line expert. You can find him at subjectline.com. Also does a lot of other cool things. Works a lot with HubSpot, and we're both speaking at Inbound this year. So if you're going to be in Boston, check out Jay's session. Check out my session. Look for us. We'll both be doing around a lot of cool things. Hopefully, we'll get Jay to a Sandler event here soon too. That would be amazing. And great follow on LinkedIn. We've been connected for a while, and I always get a little tidbit every week. So, Jay, I wanted to get to know you a little bit better personally at this point in your career. How do you define success for yourself? You've been doing this a while. How do success?
That's an interesting question. I really do like meeting as many human beings as I can. I like networking a lot. I like learning a lot. Everything is always radically changing. So I really enjoyed, about 2 years ago, I decided to lean in more on social media, which was cringy for me, because I was never one of those people that post. Personally, I haven't posted on Facebook in like 10 years. And so I was like, I can't start posting places and all this stuff. But I said, you know what? I just want to really get out there and meet as many people as possible. And that's really been enjoyable for me. That's how Mike, I met you. And so I encourage people to step out of their comfort zone and post and meet more people, because that's been very fulfilling for me. So I don't know, that doesn't really line up with your question, but that's kind of where my head's at.
I like it. I feel like that's what makes you happy, and me too. We're very close on that. Getting out in front of people, getting to meet people, have some fun is always a great time and fulfilling. Now, the flip side of this question is even more fun for me, though.
All right.
Was there a failure in your past you are most proud of, or what was the biggest hurdle you had to get over in order to be successful?
The way I really got into digital marketing, I was in college in the around 90. Well, I was in college in 94, 95. This all started. And this is when internet advertising basically didn't exist. I mean, really did not exist. And I thought that you could place an ad on the internet, which sounds ridiculous now. So I started a company called Web Connect, and it was one of the very first internet advertising companies. And out of the gate, it did pretty well, but I really screwed up. And all these other companies came out at the same time, companies like DoubleClick and a few others. And I couldn't keep up, and I really dropped the ball. And so, but that failure got me into email and everything I'm doing now. So without that, I never could have done what I'm doing today. So I'm absolutely believer that failure leads to opportunity. And the other mantra I live by is that regret is worse than failure. Not trying to something that's in your mind that will live in your mind forever. I would rather fail 100 times over than to regret not having done it. So I've made countless mistakes, screwed up a million times. I've unfortunately probably lost more clients than I'll ever again have. But that's part of the journey, right? That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I can relate to that a lot. I was just about maybe 5 years behind you, but I think hindsight is so crazy, especially when you look at the internet and evolution, is that I was on the radio in my 20s and I had tens of thousands of followers on social media. And then I just deleted them all. I had a podcast and an internet radio station that had 30,000 listeners a month in the early 2000s. I could have been Joe Rogan by now, Jay.
Right.
I just stayed with it. But, sometimes you got to start over from scratch and clear out that list and build again.
You're crushing it now. You are crushing it.
That's right. Now, last question, I guess. You've been to Inbound plenty of times. Do you have any tips for us on why people should go and check out HubSpot Inbound? Or when we get there, how do we make the most of this event?
It's an incredible event. So you go to inbound.com, you can register there. It is a fire hose. Okay. Number one, I will give you this tip. Some of the sessions you have to register to go. And the reason I'm telling you that is registration for those sessions is going to open up next week, the first week of August. And so whenever you listen to this, whatever session you want to go to, make sure that you go in the app and you register for it, because there's so many thousands of people there. There could be sessions that you ultimately miss. But one of the things that, listen, some people do it, some people don't do it. I think you should. If you go to a session, you love the speaker, go up after that session's over and shake hands with that speaker, connect with that speaker on LinkedIn. You have access to some of the most amazing people in sales and marketing. And to just go there and just to walk away from the session, not be able to then build your network and get to know that person is bananas to me. So they're all there, connect, get to know people, and just embrace it all, because I think it's super, super unique opportunity.
Yeah, I would say try a little bit of everything there too. Obviously, the big stage stuff like Alex Huberman and Hassan Minaj and stuff is going to be on stage and things. Those big ones are great, but the smaller breakout sessions, deep dive educational stuff is 90 minutes with an expert like Jay here and stuff that you can connect with really cool people that will talk to you and they'll answer your questions, and famous authors and really cool people at this event. And I like a little sampling of everything. The floor is great to mix up with other marketers and
100%.
stuff. And then some of the middle stages, Jay and I also get to be on, where there's maybe 1,000 people instead of 10,000 for Alex Huberman or something. There's 1,000 that give really different, interesting vibes and sessions that you do have to plan out that agenda ahead of time and make sure you get a balance. But don't snooze on any of them. Try all the different types of meetups and groups and events they have planned for you. It's a cool thing. Jay, thank you so much for being here. Again, subjectline.com for more information. And for more information on Sandler, go to sandler.com. We made it really easy. There's a resources section. You can get more information on sales, leadership, personal growth and development for your career. Reach out to the local training center, or if you have more than one location, reach out to our enterprise team and we'll get you set up there. Until next time, whatever you are, be a good one. That's what I always say. Have a great week.